the USTEC. And in fact, in the last 24 hours, the USTEC has been very choppy. And we saw some volatility. I think after the ADP employment change yesterday, we saw some volatility in the market, which shook out a lot of people in this market. And with the current situation here, and looking at what has been happening since the beginning of the week, a bearish momentum is still very possible in this market. So let's quickly run through how the week started for us on the USTEC here. So at the beginning of the week, we identified this channel between the 12,350, which was our initial resistance point for this week, and the 12,260 level, which was the support line for this week. Now the week started on a bullish note here after we cited the breakout of the 12,350 level, which gave us that buy opportunity. And in fact, price action moved about 120 pips in our direction before this bearish momentum started. And during the live session on Tuesday morning, we identified a reversal pattern on the structure. So if I zoom out a little further and taking into consideration the previous impulse leg that started last week, that is this bullish move to the upside, we identified a head and shoulder pattern. So we have the left shoulder here, we have the head, and then we have the right shoulder here. Then the neckline of that reversal pattern coincidentally shares the same line with the bullish trend line that we identified at the beginning of the week. As you can see, since the beginning of the week, we had this bullish momentum. So when we connected a series of higher lows, we had this beautiful neckline to support this reversal pattern we just identified here. And you all know, for a reversal pattern like this to be confirmed, we need price action to break down the neckline area for a buy sell position. And in order to position ourselves in such a way that we can catch that opportunity, we had this $12,315 level identified with a sell stop order sitting below that structure. And in fact, on Tuesday's trading session, we had this bearish momentum that took price into the 12,130 level with about 190 pips in profit. So in the last 48 hours here, we have been bearish. But one interesting thing about this current structure is that as soon as price got into that $12,130 level, look at what we found here. We begin to see buy pressure resume around that area, negating all attempt by the sellers to break down that structure. And with this kind of situation here, it is very important that we take into consideration the possibility that buyers could actually come in. And because of the situation here, we need to be very careful, hold on and wait for significant signal before we can join the decline to the downside. Now, before I go into the details of what our expectations are right now, and for the sake of those who are not part of the live session on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, I would want us to scale up into the daily time frame so that we can have an holistic perspective of what is really going on in this market, so that we can all be on the same page here and at the same time be able to align the structures on the daily time frame with what we have on the 1 hour time frame. Now, what we are going to do right now is to scale up into the daily time frame, and to do that, let's scale up into the daily time frame to see what is really going on here. So this is the daily time frame. And for those who have been part of the live session since the beginning of the week, you will remember that we have identified the fact that the current structure in this market is very bearish. And if we look at what has been happening on this chart since last year, you will see how price action has been finding lower highs. And when we connect the series of lower highs here, we have this beautiful bearish trend line figured out at this point. Now, things got more interesting when during the month of June/July, as we can see how the $11,000 area negated all attempt by the sellers to continue to the downside. And as a result of this, we saw accumulation of buy pressure around the $11,000 area, which lasted about 6 months before we finally saw the breakout of that 11,000 during the first day of this year. And since then, price action has continued to find higher highs, higher lows, leading to the breakout of that bearish trend line to emphasize that the trend line is no longer strong enough to hold that bearish momentum. Now, we saw a situation where price climbed back into the 12,900 level. Since it got to the 12,900, what did we see? We saw a beautiful reversal pattern in the form of a double top structure, and this is what we saw here. We saw a beautiful reversal pattern, and for this reversal pattern to mature, we need to identify a neckline where price action must be able to break down and retest that structure to give us a confirmation of a sell-off in this market. And this was exactly what happened a couple of weeks ago, as we saw price action break down both the bullish trend line, which has been supporting this bullish momentum since the beginning of the year, and the neckline area of that reversal pattern at the $12,300 level to bring price to the downside. And you all know that from a technical standpoint, whenever we have a retest of structure, there is always this tendency that price action will come back to do a retest of that structure to incite another wave of bearish momentum. And since the beginning of this week we are in right now, we can see that since price tested the $12,300 level, that was last week, we saw that selling pressure resumed again around that area, giving us a clue that the neckline appeared to have been respected. And since on Tuesday, we have been enjoying this bearish momentum, so we were lucky enough to take advantage of this move as price action rode all the way down into the 12,130. And look at what we have been seeing here since the beginning of the week. The $12,130 level has been a buying niche for participants in this market throughout this week. Now, there are two things we want to be looking out for as we scale back down to the 1 hour time frame. So before we do that, we want to quickly have an holistic view here of what is really going on in this market. So with the continued buy pressure around the 12,130, we might likely see a situation where a trend continuation to the upside will happen, breaking out of the 12,130 to the upside. That is one possibility. We are going to take that into consideration as well when we scale down to the 1 hour time frame. Then the other possible thing that could happen is that price action could break down that 12,130 to incite another wave of bearish momentum to the downside. So now, with the information we have gathered here on the 1 hour time frame, let's scale back down to on the daily time frame. We want to scale back down to the 1 hour time frame to position ourselves ahead of the New York session. Now, going back into the 1 hour time frame, what are we going to be using to guide our trading activity for this week? Well, based on this current structure, our perspective from yesterday has not yet changed, as we already identified this bearish trend line after connecting the series of lower highs here to emphasize the strength of the sellers so far this week. And as long as price remain below that bearish trend line, definitely we want to be looking forward to selling opportunity. But what do we want to see on this current market structure to confirm that we want to be selling the USTEC? Well, if you look at the structure and taking into consideration the continued buy pressure that we have been witnessing around the 12,130, definitely we want to be seeing price action break down that 12,130 to give us a beautiful bearish signal so that we can be confident enough to join a sell position here. So if a breakdown of this structure happened, this is a beautiful bearish signal. So if that happened, we scale down to our lower time frame. It could be your 5 minutes, your 10-minute time frame. Look out for a retest of the structure to give us that leverage to join that decline to the downside. And if price action goes on to further break down the 12,000 level, then definitely we want to be adding more position to our existing trade. So this is the only way we could be thinking of selling the USTEC for today. We want to see price action take out the buy position at around the 12,130 for us to have a bearish bias on the USTEC for today. Now, the other scenario here is that if the buy pressure here continues, that is, if the bullish pressure here gets stronger, then a breakout of that bearish trend line will definitely be a beautiful signal that we want to be going bullish as a momentum shift is gradually coming in. Now, if a breakout of the bearish trend line happens, we don't want to join outrightly, as we need further confirmations to happen before joining. And when the breakout of the trend line happens, we want to scale down to our lower time frame, look out for a retest of the trend line, probably buying pressure above that structure, after which we want to be joining the rally to the upside. And if a further breakout of the $12,200 level happens, we want to be adding more position to our existing trade. So this is what we are going to be looking forward to on the USTEC for today. So let's be on standby to catch that opportunity when it happens. So what I'm simply saying here is that below the 12,130 is where we shall be looking out for selling opportunity, and a breakout of the trend line will be giving us a signal of a possible momentum shift anytime soon. So let's be on standby for that one. If you have questions, feel free to drop your inquiries in the comment section.